NWO.
They're practically middle-aged.
For life.
Jeff calls us outlaws.
New World Order. For life. New World Order.
It's episode 21 and it's WCW. Yay! We need the canned children's cheers from the Firefly Funhouse put in there for real enthusiasm. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's episode 21 of the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast, and we are delighted to bring to you WCW Spring Stampede 1998 from Denver, Colorado. Adam, how are you doing this fine evening?
Yeah, great. This will be fun.
1998 is dragging, right?
Somehow time moves slower in WCW world than it does elsewhere. But yeah, maybe that's just me. I don't know.
We took some time out and we had a wee vacation to All Elite Wrestling, so we've only got ourselves to blame. It was a good way of procrastinating, but we had to come back to the meat, as they say. And here we are with Iron Mike Tenay, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and our boy Tony Schiavone in Denver, Colorado. It's Spring Stampede. Probably the most elaborate of stages that we've seen in 1998 so far. Certainly one up in anything that WWF has done to this point.
Yeah, I think that my memory is they were generally pretty basic, pretty bare, but there's a couple of things going on here just to try to remind you of exactly what pay-per-view we're watching.
Yeah, what we need here is, you know, like how WWF have like music that's, you know, like the themed song for each pay-per-view. We could do with JBL's music for this.
Yeah, that'd be good. That would have been the highlight of the show, though. You don't want it to overshadow the whole show.
Oh, fuck. We've started already. I was actually going to say WCW Spring Stampede, or, as I called it, WCW... What's the fucking point in this?
Yeah.
Maybe watching All Out was the worst possible thing we could have done before recording this one, but hey ho. We've got ourselves into this mess, Adam, and we're going to maybe get ourselves out of it.
Yeah, what you don't want to do is end up not watching any AEW just because it's good. You don't want to end up in that world.
No, that's a fair point. That's how you end up trolling Netflix for like the worst possible horror movies there is. Yeah. So here we are, April 1998. We're with WCW. At this point in time, I can't even remember what the fuck WWF are doing. To be quite honest, I think we maybe had Unforgiven and the Inferno match most recently.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, and it's been Austin and
Dude Love.
Dude Love, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in WCW, as usual, it's all about the NWO, Hogan, and that disciple fella that he's plucked off the road and decided to get him to come carry his bags. He would probably drop the bags, wouldn't he?
Yeah, we'll get into it later, but yeah.
I want to say up front before we even start talking about this pay-per-view that Vince Russo is still working for WWF at this point. Just want to make that 100% clear.
Yeah, it's not all his fault.
No, exactly. It was a shit show before he got there.
Yeah, it's maybe one of those, you know, the GIF where the guy goes in with the pizzas and the place is burning and all that and everything's going to shit. It's maybe everyone gives Russo a hard time. Maybe he walked into that. So yeah.
He's a delivery man.
Yeah.
Could be, bro. Right. Let's go for it. Let's go for it with this pay-per-view. We kick right off from the start with a little video package which basically breaks down all the sort of issues that the NWO have been having. So Nash and Hogan are at each other. Savage and Hogan are really at each other. And we're seeing a bit of a split happen between everyone's favourite black and white faction. And that takes us neatly into the pay-per-view. We kick off. I love to say that we kick off with a banger, but rarely do we actually kick off with a banger. And this one is no exception. It's all right, actually. It's not bad. We start off with Perry Saturn and Mr. Undefeated. I think at this point in time he's 73-0.
Yeah, that's what they said at the start of the intros anyway.
So Bill Goldberg, who is I think, is it Tenay maybe, says that he's basically been squashing cans up until now. So this is probably the first match that we've seen at Goldberg's, I would say, so far, where he's let the other person get a bit of offense in. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. When it started, because I hadn't checked times or anything like that, I assumed another squash. So it does go a little bit longer than I expected, and Saturn gets some offense in. I don't think anyone watching is ever at any point under any illusion about who's going to win the match, but at least it's made to look probably more competitive than his previous matches.
Yeah, agreed. And Saturn's doing logical things. He's trying to chop him down. He's going for the legs and the knees. And we get Kidman in here trying to help out, because obviously Saturn and Kidman are in the Ravens flock. It's a Goldberg match, a little bit more of an extended Goldberg match. Saturn tries to put on the rings of Saturn, and Goldberg picks him up and slams him into a horrible looking jackhammer for the win. 74-0.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's doing, we're putting Goldberg over. We're putting him over strong. Interference can't stop him and all that. We know where it's heading long term, but we find out just beforehand that short term, where it's going to head for him is that he is going to get a shot at the US title on the following Nitro, against the winner of the DDP versus Raven title match later on in the card. So we know he's now number one contender to go and win his first title in WCW.
And that's a neat way of hooking us in to seeing what happens next. I think at this point in time, Goldberg's over massively. I think you see on the episode Nitro after this, my God, he's like a superstar. Yeah. They make a really big deal of him, and I think they do really well at doing that. So yeah, probably quite a sensible thing to start off with Goldberg, actually. Hooks you in. I'm sure everybody was really enjoying watching him at this point in time. Yeah,
and the crowd are into it, and like you say, it's if you can't start fast with a brilliant quality match, it's a one-sided match, but at least it should get the crowd up and going. And I think it did that. He's getting a brilliant reaction at this stage, and I think he does for quite a while beyond. Yeah, and we can talk about who Goldberg faces and what happens the following night once we've got to the DDP Raven Hardcore Fest. So we follow that with another, I feel, a fairly decent match. Chavo Guerrero, coming out with his Uncle Eddie, who is still hugely disappointed in his nephew. And he's taken on Ultimo Dragon. Have you seen much of Ultimo Dragon in your time, Adam? A few matches here and there, but not a lot. I quite enjoyed this. I thought it was a decent match. I really like the story they've got going with Chavo and Eddie. It's one of the more interesting stories that they've got on the go just now. That's not under the NWO banner. Just tiny little bit of background, but Chavo is basically having to follow Eddie. He wears is it My Favorite Wrestler is Eddie Guerrero t-shirt,
like that.
with Lie, Cheat and Steal on the back of it, and Eddie's really good at playing this, underhanded heel who'll do anything to get his way, do anything to win a match, wants Chavo to follow in his footsteps in that sense, and is just furious that he's doing things like playing fair in this match. Like he's given Ultimo Dragon a little bit of recovery time after an accidental low blow. This is, not the way that Eddie would be performing in this match. He'd be taking every shortcut and every advantage possible. I like that story. I think it's a good one for both performers. I think they're both kind of getting over from it.
Yep, totally agree. See, even the way Eddie walks, the way he sort of skulks about, he's sort of bridging the gap between dastardly heel and like pantomime villain really, really well. Yeah. And he spends most of this match hiding under a towel because he's so unimpressed with his nephew's performance. I did quite like the way I'm like you. I really enjoy what they're doing with this storyline. It's totally independent of everything else that's going on, and I think, I don't know if I'm being really naive, but I'm quite interested to see if Chavo is eventually just going to succumb to that Guerrero gene, or if he's going to go against Eddie. I'm really quite interested.
Yeah, it's good because it's still very much where we are just now. It feels like it could go either way, which is interesting because you don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I think there was that time when Ultimo Dragon was down and it looked like Chavo was kind of maybe going to attack him, and then he sort of backs off. Yeah. Ultimately, he does the right thing and it ends up costing him, and I'm sure that's what we'll hear Eddie saying to him. He goes for his Tornado DDT from the top rope, and Ultimo Dragon reverse it into quite a neat reversal into his Dragon Sleeper, and Chavo taps. Yeah. And Ultimo Dragon wins the match, and we fade to black with Eddie looking less than impressed with his nephew.
Yeah. We've got a little moment on the following Nitro with Eddie and Chavo, where it's actually during a La Parca and Ultimo Dragon match.
Okay.
So that Eddie kind of guides Chavo down to ringside and wants Eddie to get involved, to take out a weak man, somebody who's already been in a match and is currently in the throes of a match. Chavo looks like he doesn't really want to, doesn't want to interfere, but he ends up doing it. He gets involved and goes after Ultimo Dragon. He doesn't look happy about the fact he's doing it, which, still plays into where we are with the story. Is he going to end up embracing it now that he's got a little bit of a taste for it? Or is he going to be even more against it and a bit disgusted with himself that he kind of gave in to what Eddie was telling him to do?
I like that. I have to admit that I must have flicked past that because I tried to really only watch the bits of the Nitro that I thought might be the sort of big important part, so I've missed that. That's what you get if you go past a La Parca match. What a blunder.
that guy's quite something.
So it was at this point in time that I texted you and said, what are you talking about? Those first two matches have been, like they're no 5 stars or anything, but they're all right. And I think, what did you say? No, I said some of it's decent.
Yeah, that is what I said, because I'd watched it a few days before you. And I really do try not to, go negative, because you don't want to influence the when you haven't watched it. But it was a bit of a struggle with this one.
Well, the next match isn't too bad. We've got Chris Benoit taking on Booker for his TNT. Is it TNT TV title? I think I say it different every time.
I don't know if it is TNT or if it's just TV title, but you might be right. I'm not sure.
So the whole gimmick with these TV title matches is that we've been talking about Booker. He's been fighting all the time, taking on all comers, and there's a 10-minute allocation to these matches. Benoit and Booker T have went 10 minutes twice, I think Tenay maybe said.
Yeah.
And they've went to a draw 2 times. On pay-per-view, they'll get the opportunity to go a bit longer and until there's a winner. So I think on paper, looking at Benoit and Booker T, looks like a good match. So you kind of know what you're getting before this, I think.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the series that these two have had?
Yes.
Across the years?
Yes, I am. I didn't know when that happened in relation to where we are just now.
Yeah, same. So they've had 2 best of 7 series. The first of the best of 7 happened in, what are we in here? April. We're in April, yeah.
Yeah.
The first best of 7 starts in May.
Okay.
So you can see what this match is setting out. And the second one happened in WWE, obviously, in 2005.
Yeah.
That one for the US belt, this one for the TV belt. I think, to be honest with you, I didn't take a huge amount of notes because I was quite enjoying watching it. I've just got here that this was exactly what you'd expect for these two. It's very hard hitting.
Yeah, quite stiff. I've got a few notes about what's going on. You know, again, I think we've mentioned this before, but respect is very much playing into the narrative between the two. However, we've had a situation on Thunder just before this where Benoit's in a match with I think it's Scott Norton, and there's a lot of NWO interference because T comes down and makes the save, but Benoit doesn't want the help. He's not. He doesn't react very positively.
Oh, really?
So that when they're having their match here again, it's very much looks like a wrestling match, a clean contest at the start, and then descends into a brawl as we go. Benoit's showing some heel tendencies as we go through. This being kind of I would say babyface against babyface match.
Yep.
And I can understand Benoit being the one that does some of these things because I think, Booker's very much starting to get over as a pretty big babyface here. So some heel tendencies from Benoit, a lot of, suplexes, body slams, things like that. Like you say, the kind of things you would expect in the matches between the two. We've got Benoit hitting the top rope, flying headbutt. But Booker T getting to the ropes. Booker T big suplex on Benoit. We've got Benoit responding with the 3 rolling German suplexes. Every time I put suplex in a note, it seems to autocorrect to duplex, which is handy. At least I know what it means when I see duplex. Booker T hits his sidewalk slam, and there's a point when they're both here. They're both kind of selling the impact that what's been a pretty fast-paced match has had on them. They both look absolutely exhausted. Booker T kind of gets a second wind, takes control. We've got some. He does. I don't think they refer to it as a spinneroonie, but he does get to his feet from a lying position by doing a spinneroonie type move. I just don't think it had been named yet. I assume it was named in WWE rather than WCW.
It just screams WWE, doesn't it?
Yeah, they'll have seen it and thought that needs a name.
It's the Spinneroonie.
We've got the ref ending up getting an axe kick from Booker T.
Come on, Mickey J, you can do better than that. That was so awkward.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a 3-man handshake or something. It's really weird.
Yeah, I did write, that this is probably the worst looking thing in the match because it didn't look like it was even possible from the build up to it. But they have to take out the ref somehow. Didn't look great. So Booker's then trying to revive the ref while Benoit's recovering, and we get Benoit applying the crossface. Nice, I think, little story here, given where they're clearly going, which is, more matches coming up, where there's some debate over whether Booker T tapped out or was just reaching for the rope and didn't quite get it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It really was ambiguous the way he did it. It wasn't your classic tap, tap, tap.
Yeah, I thought it was, there's a good story there for both performers in terms of what happens next, because Benoit realizes there's no ref, goes to try and revive him. Booker T's then back on his feet and hits that Harlem sidekick. Ref just has enough in him to count the 3 count and the pinfall for Booker to retain. Benoit's clearly not happy and feeling cheated. He believes Booker T tapped out. But yeah, good story, because I think both could totally straight-faced argue that they had the win in that match, which is a good way to move forward for both into a program.
Yeah, agreed. Just noting you talking about both guys looking exhausted. I think that's a bit of a theme across this whole pay-per-view. I know they're in Denver, and you're at a high altitude.
Yeah.
It's not really mentioned. I think Tenay mentions it at one point during the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But I know from watching UFC, I remember there was a Cain Velasquez and somebody. There was a point where Cain Velasquez was unbeatable. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And he ended up fighting in Denver at high altitude, and he lost his title. I always remember from then on, I wonder if it's, if they are in Denver, I wonder if it has an impact on them, because like you say, a lot of them are looking exhausted in a lot of these matches.
I've seen it in the NFL as well. Players having to take oxygen at times if they're not used to playing the Broncos in Denver, and it obviously, when you're, it's that physical and that demanding on the body. I think if you're not used to it, you start to struggle.
Yeah. Also, did you think that the apron or the mat that they were wrestling on looked solid? It looked really different. I noticed DDP slipping on it a few times.
All right.
It's almost
I
like
didn't pick up on it.
They're like, like a classic gym hall type affair. They should have had the old sand shoes on. It looked solid to me, but maybe that's just reading into it too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, a good hard-hitting wrestling match with some good storytelling is not what we're about to get from the British Bulldog, being accompanied by an inexplicably pajamaed Jim the Anvil Neidhart versus Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude. With Rick Rude, I should say. What the fuck is this? This is an absolute disgrace. Let's just try and break this down, right? Bulldog is still going for his sort of baby face, hello there, I'm from England gimmick. He's limping on his way out to the ring.
Yeah.
We've obviously established through the last pay-per-view that Rick Rude is an absolute menace. Why JJ Dillon's not banned him for ringside by now is beyond me, but here we are. We get a policeman, wink wink, nudge nudge Adam, to handcuff Neidhart and Rude to each other because they saw WrestleMania 14 and thought, well, we want a piece of that.
Yeah.
Give me some of that Sergeant Slaughter action. Neidhart is beckoning Rick Rude with one finger in an extremely camp manner that I'm really, really uncomfortable with, considering it just looks like he's got jammy bottoms on. The match itself is an absolute mess. There's nothing more significant than a punch or kick thrown the whole match.
Yeah.
Turns out there's far more going on the outside than there is in the ring. Turns out that the policeman, Adam, can you believe this? the one black man in Denver is a policeman, and it's Virgil or Vincent, whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah. This is a total shit show.
It's disgraceful. It's an absolute disgrace. I've got written here at the end, because what happens in the actual match, Vincent takes his hat off and unveils that it's him. Jim Neidhart's trying to choke him out, and meanwhile, Rick Rude has got the keys and he handcuffs Neidhart to the pole outside.
Yeah.
Gets in the ring, tries not to slip over as he helps Kurt Hennig beat up the British Bulldog whilst the referee's down. I'm assuming the referee's down at this point.
Yeah.
And the pair of them end up beating up British Bulldog. I've written here, if Bret Hart comes out here, I am fucking done with WCW if they drag him into this.
Yeah. It was bad. It just was. Yeah, we've got... it's not a follow-up to this. It's a Nitro match with Kurt Hennig again in against Benoit. So I was thinking this might, at least be a bit better. Rick Rude getting involved. The whole time Schiavone's asking him NWO questions and stuff like that. But we've got Benoit applying the crossface, Rude interfering, Hennig taps out, so Benoit wins. Booker T again running down to help, so it's more a follow-on from kind of what we saw earlier.
Right.
But again, Benoit's still not that impressed, telling Booker to stay out of his business.
Really?
Yeah. There's no... I know you were as well. I was a huge fan of Kurt Hennig as Mr. Perfect. I was a Bulldog fan early on, in his career. That Intercontinental match at SummerSlam at Wembley.
It's like it has to be mentioned when you're talking about Bulldog.
Yeah.
SummerSlam 92.
And I just don't... These two have no business wrestling each other in a match at this point. I'm okay with Hennig still wrestling because he can still do certain things. And he can still have a good match, but I feel like he needs somebody younger in there, a bit more mobile, can help carry him through a match. Bulldog should not be wrestling. He can't really do anything.
The thing is, he's still got a WWF run to go after this, doesn't he?
And I don't know if it's, you mentioned he's kind of limping on the way down. Maybe he is injured and limited because of that. It was just terrible.
It's a joke. They should do what's right and take it off the network. It's offensive. It's like this. What is it called again? The whole thing that they've got with Rick Rude, where he's not allowed to wrestle because he's had this huge payout.
Yeah, the Lloyd's of London.
Lloyd's of London, that's it. But it's like they need to shoehorn him in because he may not be able to legally may not be able to wrestle, but clearly can still go. And it's like they need to shoehorn him in and get him in the ring, and it's just not good. Yeah. Never mind. We've got Jericho up next. We've got the Cruiserweight Championship between Chris Jericho, defending champion. He's had a good run as we've been watching along. I think the last time out we saw him against Steve Malenko, with Mean Gene tearing strips off poor Dean afterwards. And he is going up against the Hawaiian Prince of IKEA.
Yes.
Prince Iokea? Prince Iokea.
Prince Iokea. This is not a guy I was very familiar with. I don't know about you.
No, not at all. I genuinely never heard of him before.
Yeah. I think we may have... I don't even remember if we've seen him on any of the shows we've been doing. Now, he may well have been on a few that we haven't watched as part of what we're doing, but
sure.
It was also just kind of brand new to me as a name in wrestling history.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
He was all right. He was pretty good. He could go, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It kind of feels. I don't mean this to sound as disrespectful as it might,
Yes.
but no, I'm not. I'm not going to have a go at anyone.
Say it.
But Jericho already here feels really far above the people he's working with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a criticism of the guys he's in there working with, because like you said, the in-ring matches are all fine and things like that. It feels like he's going with these stories and none of these guys really have a story.
Totally. We're just kind of lining up guys for him to run through, basically, aren't we?
Yeah. I'm curious about what you thought I was going to criticise, because it probably wasn't that.
No, I don't know. No.
So he makes part of this about Dean Malenko, as he has been kind of as he's going, and I think they mentioned Prince Iaukea was trained by Dean Malenko.
Yeah. Do you think we're getting a rematch down the road?
It feels like we might be heading that way.
I hope so.
And Jericho dedicates the match to Dean Malenko, who he says is sitting at home eating potato chips and drinking Coke. I really like watching Jericho, and I look at some of the rest of the talent that's in the company and kind of wish he was working with some of those guys.
Well, that's interesting, because I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm quite glad that he's got his own wee lane down here off to the side.
Okay.
And he's just sort of having himself a good old time. He's doing what he wants on the mic, it seems. He's doing what he wants with his angle. I like this whole collector gimmick he's got going on, where he's taking little bits and pieces from everybody that he beats.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Not in like that sounds a bit sinister. It's not a sinister way, but
it's not like ears or anything.
Nah, yeah. I'm all ears. Nah, more in a childlike, stupid, showing off Jericho way. That sort of only he can. He can do.
Just to clarify, when I say that I wish he was working with others, I don't mean NW or top of the card. I'm seeing people like Benoit and Booker and even DDP and people like that. It's more. I don't go into, now he probably will at some point, but I don't go into any of these matches and think, oh, I wonder who'll win. Because it feels like, quite rightly, like this is very much Jericho's title for probably a little while beyond now. And it's more, I'd like to see, it feels like these are all fill-ins for Malenko coming back and having a rematch. Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know if they've built, like, I think the match at, what's the last one Uncensored? The match they had was great, it was cracking.
Yeah.
We need more from Malenko to build that rematch.
Yeah, and I know he's what was he? He was like all depressed, wasn't he? And, and just kind of walked away from the bullying and harassment he was getting from Mean Gene.
Sick bastard.
And we've not seen him since.
But hopefully we will. Hopefully we'll see him back. And so this Prince Iaukea was wrestling with no shoes on, which is a little bit different. He's a cruiserweight, so you kind of know what you're getting, but he's not like, he's certainly not like a lucha style or anything like that. So he's high flying and high impact. And it was quite a good match. It was a lot of surprisingly close falls, and you were saying there that you know who's going to win, and we both knew Jericho's going to win here, but you do get a couple of close falls for the Hawaiian Prince of Sweden. I've got written here. That doesn't make it. Oh, IKEA. Okay.
Wow.
Nah.
Do you think you were laughing to yourself as you wrote it?
Definitely. Yeah. There's an odd spot that's kind of like the turning point, or the big spot in the match. The two of them are both, I think. Oh, hello. Is that your cat?
Yes.
Coming to join.
Just decided to come in and shout a little bit. Hopefully, it'll be quiet now. They're both up on the top turnbuckles, and they're both like stood together, which is quite strange to see, but they're obviously cooperating.
Mike Tenay, that sick freak, he wants Jericho to do a Hurricane Rana as they're both stood on the top of the turnbuckle. Something goes wrong and Iakea hits the apron outside. Jericho falls all the way to the floor. That's kind of like apart from that, it's quite mat-based. A mat-based match. That's kind of like the big turning point in the match anyway. They go back and forth a bit. Iakea goes for a sunset flip. And you know what's going to happen there. Reversal, Lion Tamer, it's over. Jericho retains. Good match.
Yeah, and I did quite like the fact that it was quite mat-based, because it could run the risk of it feeling like Jericho's having the same match over and over again, albeit with different people. So it's a little bit of variety, and yes, it's cruiserweight, but someone who is that weight don't necessarily all have the same style, which is good, because they logically wouldn't.
Yeah, totally. This is an odd one. Where's Rey Mysterio at this point? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't. I did wonder if he was injured, because I know if he's already with WCW, which I would have thought he would be, because I think he was actually there when the NWO first. I've memories of like Kevin Nash throwing him into a trailer or something like that. So he's probably injured, because he didn't move across early, did he? He was after the. He
was still on the last episode of Nitro. Mm-hmm. He was still there.
So he's probably injured, because I know he had a couple of bad knee injuries over the years, so it might be one of those.
Oh, interesting to see if we get him thrown into this mix. Quite like to see Kidman thrown in with Jericho as well. That'd be probably quite entertaining.
Yeah. That's there are a lot of possibilities for matches. I don't know if you caught any of the Jericho stuff on the Nitro after. So he's mocking Dean Malenko. He says something like, Dean Malenko will never be back in the ring again, so he's about to have a match against Juventud. And he says, this one's for you, Trooper, talking about Dean Malenko. And they actually really put Juventud over pretty strong in the match. So Juventud gets caught in the walls of Jericho, but they do the whole Stone Cold Steve Austin thing. He won't tap out Juventud, so he passes out. Jericho retains. Jericho actually he's very good with the facials. He looks really shocked that Juventud didn't submit. And although he's retained his belt, he just has a bit of a surprised look on his face at everything that's just happened. So I don't know if they're trying to put a little bit of steam behind Juventud there at the moment.
Nice. They had, that match that they had where he demasked was a really close match. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be against seeing them again. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we go into a tag team match here, and I may go on another rant. But before I do, who is tag team champions here? Outsiders.
It's not on the card, is it? The tag.
I don't remember us ever actually talking about it. I'm going to pause it and look to see. So we have worked out that the Outsiders are tag team champions. I'm not sure where Scott Hall is at this point. The Outsiders won the titles from the Steiners.
Yeah.
After Scott turned. Uncensored. Okay.
Yeah.
Can get behind that. I'm not sure where Scott Hall is this pay-per-view. I thought it was odd.
Yeah, because he had a pretty prominent position in the last one, so to have just disappeared, although I suppose with everything that's going to come up, he's bound to have a role in what's about to happen.
Yeah, sure. So we've talked the tag teams. We've got Rick Steiner and Lex Luger, who feels like he's sort of just been sort of slotted in here for something to do, because all the other higher slots up the card have been taken. And they're in a match against Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell. This is some serious. This is some tedious nonsense that they waste. This pay-per-view is 2 hours 30 minutes. You take that fucking mess of Bulldog versus Kurt Hennig off it, and then take off this. You're looking at a much better looking pay-per-view. A lot of nonsense with Buff Bagwell in his hand. They're making a big deal that it looks like he's just chucked some bandages over the top of his wrist. They get some doctor to come in who looks an awful lot like Lex Luger to have a look at it. He says that he's fine to go, and Buff makes the mistake of actually grabbing JJ Dillon with the hand that supposedly hurt. So, yeah.
So even for you, JJ Dillon didn't save this whole sequence.
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid JJ. I'm turning the corner on old James Dillon.
Yeah.
I think it was our first sighting of that devious heel bastard Gene Okerlund, though, in the pay-per-view.
You're never going to forgive and forget with that, are you?
Nah. You're not getting past me, we're, hey, everybody, I'm nice to everybody apart from Dean Malenko. Yeah. I've got it in here. We're another month on, another pay-per-view on from Scott Steiner's heel turn, and realistically, what have they done with him?
Yeah, it feels, and I know he's kind of going to get there, but it feels like it's a big missed opportunity, because they turned him pretty strongly, and ever since then, he has seemingly been on the run from his brother. Mm-hmm. That's how it's felt. That's how it's been positioned. Mm-hmm. And I get you don't want to bury Rick Steiner. You know, it's probably is quite a bit of concern about what happens with him now. But I don't know. It feels like they turned him and then immediately made him weak, which just seems really like a missed opportunity. Yeah,
it should be being positioned as like being able to go toe to toe with Luger, whereas he's being this sort of chicken shit heel running away from his brother.
Yeah,
I've not got any notes about the match. So I was pissed off with it. But the only thing I do have written is that at least Luger is really, really over with the crowd. They love him.
I've got Scott Steiner clearly positioned as scared of his brother Rick, only willing to come in the ring to sneak attack him from behind. Rick is isolated from Lex Luger for most of the match. Rick hits a Steiner line on Bagwell, then Scott Steiner runs up the ramp. You've got...
I forgot he ran away.
Yeah. And that leaves Bagwell and Luger in the ring. Luger puts the torture rack on. Bagwell submits. Rick comes back down to the ring, but Scott doesn't reappear. There's a little bit of back and forth between the announcers about, you know, the NWO are supposed to be a all in it together, you know, brotherhood type. And Scott has abandoned his partner, but then the sort of counterpoint to that is, you know, they're all backstabbing, they're all in it for themselves. So what would you expect? Type view. This didn't grab me in any way, to be honest.
Nope, me neither. But the good news is, do you know what time it is, Adam? It's bonus match time.
Yeah.
I seem to remember the last time we got a bonus match on pay-per-view. I don't remember what it was, but it was an absolute shit sandwich.
Yeah. I can't remember either, but it was awful.
This time we get the chairman of WCW, La Parka, taking on, I think they would say he's a former tag team partner of him, Psychosis.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I had a lot more fun watching this than I've had watching some of the other matches on here, so it wasn't bad for me. Quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've got in my notes, these guys are crazy, which probably indicates some of the stuff that's on the go. Something about a corkscrew moonsault looking amazing.
Yes.
There's a whole host, aerial moves here that catch the eye.
Mainly Psychosis, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just really entertaining, and it lifted me up again a bit after what we just watched beforehand.
Yep, same. They start out the match pretty similar to what was the match that we watched last episode. Was it Eddie Kingston Miro? They sort of start out this match similar to that, and they're just slapping each other. Mm-hmm. Hard as they can, and at one point La Parka calls Psychosis a puto, which I think is Spanish for brother. Is that right, Adam?
No, but yeah.
Psychosis at one point hits a suicide dive, and Brain questions, why would anyone want to do that? Which I quite liked.
What do you make of the Mike Tenay? You know how he's obviously...
Here's one for you, Tenay.
Yeah, which is funny, and I like the way they do that, but it is like he is the sort of expert in the field for
the lucha expert, isn't he?
Yeah. And I think in some shows he's purely brought out for that match, whereas in other shows he's kind of on the card the whole time. I don't know, I just find him a bit annoying a lot of the time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I certainly don't take, I don't take anything away from what he says about, these matches are entertaining. Are they a bit silly? Is that right?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It doesn't feel like they benefit from an expert, I suppose. And I find Tenay a bit annoying as well. So he's called Iron Mike Tenay, and he's this sort of little weedy looking guy. Nah. I'm quite down on this pay-per-view.
I was hoping we would find something, but if it wasn't coming from that match, then I don't know where we're going to find it.
Psychosis wins this match, but I don't know how.
Now, I did have a criticism of this as we were going to finish. So, La Parka is trapped in the ropes, but he's really not. I mean, it looks incredibly easy for him to have got out of the situation he's in. Psychosis hits a guillotine leg drop, while La Parka is poor lad is still trapped in these ropes, and then gets the pin for the win there. But yeah, it did look like he could have just removed himself from the ropes without too much effort. But there you go.
Talking about the altitude, poor Psychosis. He does all these crazy moves, and then at some point he just looks absolutely knackered. And at the end he says something at the camera, and he just looks like a dying man on his knees. But he got the win, so it matters.
That's the main thing.
So, surprisingly, we come to Hogan, and it's not the final match on the card. Pretty unbelievable.
Yeah. So, this is the one we were really looking forward to, I think. This
is it.
Yeah.
Judy Bagwell in a pole match. No, the bat on a pole match, which they set us up for, I think, at the previous pay-per-view. The previous pay-per-view match was the rematch between Nash and Giant, was it?
Yeah.
Uncensored. And it was in that match that the bat got introduced, and Hogan broke it over a Giant's shoulder. I don't know where Piper came from. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I know he'd appeared as someone, to stand up to Hogan previously. I don't know specifically where the alliance comes from for this match. I don't know if you watched through much of the Thunder and the build up to this match.
Oh yes, I definitely did, Adam.
So there was animosity being teased between Nash and Hogan, which we touched on earlier. There's a a Nash promo, and what I wrote really optimistically was there's a response later on from Hogan. I think there are 4 responses from Hogan as we go through the show.
Jesus.
And it's that thing where every time he appears to say something else, he's not saying anything, he's not selling you the show, it's already done. But I just got more and more angry with the fact that they're ramming this down my throat.
That's what you're meant to feel like that, though. He's a heel.
It made me want to switch off. That can't be the plan.
Yeah, I've got a note there from the Nitro the night after. I've said it's taken Hogan 8 minutes to essentially tell us that the NWO is split up. 8 minutes he's going on for. He's probably saying the same vowel the whole time. Awful.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we go. Nash and Hogan, members of the NWO, come out separately. That's not lost on the commentary team, versus the Giant and the commissioner of WCW, Roddy Piper. A bat on a pole match. I've got a question for you, Adam.
Go for it.
Did Piper always get announced as being from Glasgow?
I'm not sure.
I never thought that he was like legit put over as Scottish.
I think he has been before, but certainly not every time.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember because I was getting think of a few iconic matches where he's had a big introduction. I don't remember it being a big thing beforehand.
Nah. I suppose you would probably notice, just obviously with being Scottish. Glasgow, he was built to be from. This goes surprisingly pretty short. I was like hovering over the length of it, and I was like, that cannot be it. Still going after like 25 minutes. It sounds, based on the noises that you're making, that it didn't go short enough for you.
No, see some of the things you've mentioned earlier that were terrible that did go short. Like the Bulldog and Henning match and all that. They went about 5 minutes each. They probably felt like a lot longer. This, I think, all in is, 13 minutes.
Right.
I don't know if I was just too negative about it beforehand, because I'm like, what is this? Why is this really the best way that they can split up the NWO, which, I think we all know is what's coming here.
Yeah.
So when Nash and Hogan come out separately, but then you've got Piper and the Giant coming out together, so they look cohesive and all that. I didn't want to see it. I didn't have any interest in watching it. There was quite a big crowd reaction for the Giant and Nash confrontation when they come face to face.
I quite like the way that Nash did that. He just said, Piper, just get him in. Let's go for it.
And it shows, there is an appetite for these two to be going up against each other. Because we've seen it a little bit previously, and there's definitely a crowd appetite to see it more. We've got a situation where both go for a big boot and they both get laid out in the ring, and I think there's some sort of comment by one of the announcers, I've never seen that before, never seen anything like that before. Yeah, I mean, that's probably happened a lot of times before, but
it was Schiavone. He says, have you ever seen that before in your life? This is the man that's commentated on the last 2 times it happened on pay-per-view.
To be fair, I mean, we are talking about a guy that was also instructed to say on basically every show that this was the biggest night in the history of professional wrestling and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's maybe not all his fault.
I know Schiavone's your boy.
I just find him really funny on his podcast because he doesn't give a fuck. It amuses me.
Okay, let's see if you can defend this then. At one point, Hogan's climbing up for the bat, which is, what would you say it is off the ring? From the top turnbuckle, maybe like 8-9 feet, maybe above the
like
turnbuckle.
That. Yeah.
So tall enough that Hogan's standing on the top turnbuckle and he has to be reaching up. So Giant grabs him down, or Piper grabs him down, and as he's grabbing him down, he pulls his trousers down. So his ass is exposed. the Giant then puts him over his knee and starts spanking him. And Schiavone says the entire world wanted to see that.
Yeah, I can't defend him here.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that. There's not a lot going on here. Like poor Piper. Question: I don't know what age he would have been here, but he's certainly not as old as he was when he came out in that Royal Rumble that time, like 2005 or whatever it was. But
yeah, he's only like 44 or something like that.
is he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny because when you're watching it, then you're like, oh my god, these guys are ancient. But then we just reviewed a pay-per-view last time that Christian was headlining. He's like, what, 40, 47 or something? Yeah,
I think maybe some of the guys hitting those kind of ages today lived a little bit cleaner than some of the guys from back in the day.
Nah.
Imagine what it'll be like in like 15 years' time when all they really do is sit around playing video games now.
Oh man, don't they? Undertaker will be raging.
Well, they won't have a wrinkle on them, any of these guys.
That's what I was going to say, because Piper, as soon as the bell rings, Piper's straight up the turnbuckles, climbing up there to try and get the bat. 60 seconds in, and he looks absolutely gassed.
Yeah.
He's done in.
Yeah, I think that that altitude is probably hitting him worse than anyone else. He's probably not. I think he's been back a wee while by now, but he will not be a guy that's working, matches on a regular basis or anything like that. So it's probably not going to take an awful lot for him to get gassed. I mean, you've seen guys like The Rock when he had the comeback match against Cena, and The Rock looks like he's in absolutely incredible shape, but apparently he was gassed really early in that match. And it's probably just the difference between, a guy that goes out and does that 3 nights a week and a guy that is doing it for the first time in quite a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, they do say that there's nothing quite, it's like that sort of thing of being like match fit versus training fit sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's not many highlights to talk about here. The Giant throws a drop kick, which knocks Kevin Nash over the ropes. It's at this point that Roddy Piper retrieves the bat, but he basically retrieves the bat and gives it to Hogan, who throws it away. This is a match. They're supposed to be getting it. He gets it and throws it away.
Yep.
And then, go on. Yep.
That just didn't make any sense.
No.
Well, we're supposed to be living in a world when we watch this where you can suspend your disbelief, right? So your belief going into this has to be that the be all and end all is get this bat and hit the other guy with it.
Basically, the match is over. You get the bat, you smash them with the bat. Yep, exactly. But then, once Hogan's thrown the bat away, the disciple just comes down and gives him a bat.
Yeah.
A different bat.
Yep. We need to talk about the disciple.
Let's do it. Let's unpackage this person.
Has there ever been a less intimidating guy that looks like he's in that kind of shape? And I don't. He's like a comedy character, but I don't think he's supposed to be.
No, I think he's supposed to be intimidating, but he kind of looks like... You remember it did you watch Sons of Anarchy?
Yeah.
You had the Chucky guy. What did he have? Did he have missing fingers or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
He was a bit like he hung around with the club and he was a bit a comedy character. And this is kind of like what this guy would be, except for his built. But you get the impression that they would all take the mick at him and laugh at him and make him that like go and get tar and paint for B&Q sort of behaviour. But I think he's supposed to he's either supposed to stand there and look intimidating, which he's struggling with when he tries to speak or make an emotion with his face,
Yeah, I mean, there's. I think for me, his worst moment at all that is still to come. That's a little bit later on.
Nash. Nash.
Like, I think that was the point where I had to message you and just question what the hell he's supposed to be.
It's like that sort of thing of, I don't know. It's like he's really he's really antisocial, or like he gets social anxiety, and he gets in a group and just like blurts something out. That's what that was a bit like. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Disciple brings. Let's try and focus here on this 5-star match. Disciple brings a bat, gives it to Hogan, who inadvertently hits Nash. They've got Piper. I like that Nash was holding Piper up. You know, he's holding his arm up, saying to Hogan, "Crack him in the ribs," and he goes for the hip.
Yep.
Which was strange. Piper moves it away. He cracks Nash. Eventually, the Disciple helps out Hogan into nailing Piper, and Hogan gets a 1-2-3. Hogan and see this falls down here. The whole logic of Kevin Nash, I think you're meant to think is quite intelligent. However, at this point, he gets back in the ring and then just is like buddy with Hogan again, and he goes to jackknife maybe Piper. It's
the Giant.
Is it Giant? It's like, oh, he's going to do it again.
I wrote in my notes, oh God, not this again. Suddenly feared for the Giant's life, but it's fine. It's fine. It's not going to happen. So
he goes to do the jackknife, and Hogan cracks him with the bat. But yeah, just a bit like. But Nash is coming. Nash is out of all these people with all these ridiculous storylines. Nash always sort of fits together his story. Yeah, that wasn't. I suppose we can allow him a lapse in judgment. Yeah. They're still trying to keep the Giant pretty strong here. Hogan runs from him. He breaks the bat over his knee. It's obviously playing into a whole bigger story with the NWO. I felt like there would have been so many better ways to get there if what you needed to do was, create a permanent split between two of the originals that were in it. Yep.
This match to get there just awful.
Do you not think, and I'm sure we could fantasy book until the cows come home, but do you not think it would have made sense for Hall and Nash to turn on Hogan?
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. It would have played, I think, into the characters they have portrayed since they came in. There's so many angles you could have worked with it. They were teasing issues had Hall won the belt when he had his shot. They didn't go there with it. I think there's you can see in the sort of story path that it's gone through better opportunities to have done this more effectively, I think.
Definitely. Interesting. Yeah. Oh well, we are where we are. The thing that was, sorry, I'm saying we are where we are and then going straight back into it, but the thing that's bothering me about all of this is that you're kind of creating, they've put themselves into a really weird position because you've got WCW versus NWO, but then you've got infighting within the NWO, fine. But from this pay-per-view to the next night, essentially Savage, isn't it, and Nash are now faces. So what happens to the likes of Sting?
Yeah, it makes it pretty messy. And I know they always said that the plan was to kind of have two separate organisations. And I think at a point too, they basically wanted one NWO show and one WCW show. So if that was the route they'd gone down, you would have had baby faces and heels within each organisation. That never really made sense to me because the story that made sense to me was always the NWO or the heels.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've kind of booked themselves into a corner, it feels like, because they obviously feel the need to do something to galvanize interest in everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. If you have basically one heel group that splits into two, but one of them is babyface, then how do you differentiate between them and the other babyfaces? And
should, is it like the babyfaces, like WCW babyfaces, should still be wanting to go up against the NWO members, regardless of whether they're offshoot group or not?
But I assume when we get the NWO split, it's just going to be NWO versus NWO, kind of in its own bubble. But I'm not sure about the way it ends up going, really.
I guess we'll see.
Yes.
Okay, we take a small break from NWO to the US title match, which has taken quite a high billing on the cards, really. I guess that's to do with DDP and the sort of star that they're building him to become.
Yeah.
This is weirdly presented because DDP is the US champion, but Raven's stolen the belt from him. DDP comes out first without the belt, is announced as a champion, but then Raven comes out second with the belt. It's really odd.
Yeah.
Just generally, I know it's not a big thing, but it's just quite strange.
Mm-hmm. What I can always imagine is if you imagine you hadn't seen the show before or the shows before and you just tuned in for that pay-per-view. Now, I don't know how many people were doing that in these days. I imagine people were watching the TV. There were so many people watching the TV, but it probably wouldn't make sense to you if you just tuned in, if you just decided, I'm going to get this pay-per-view and watch it. It was unusual.
And I've probably mentioned this every single time, but if Raven's not the champion, why does he get to decide that this match is under Raven's rules?
All I remember is comments made by the announcers like, every time Raven fights, it's Raven's rules. Now, like we've said before, if you're the opponent, you're surely entitled to question that.
That's really weird. But all his promos are kind of sulky. They give off sulky, angsty teenager vibes. And the fact that they're just letting him have his own type of matches would suggest that he's just getting his own way all the time. Is that a backstory, the Raven character, that he's like comes from money eventually? Does that ever come out? Am I making that up?
I'm not sure. It's a funny one, Raven, because I remember liking the character, but when I look back, I'm not sure what elements kind of drew me.
I'm the same. I think he definitely had a good ECW run. We've maybe jumped that with the whole Tommy Dreamer stuff and all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get essentially, we've seen this match before, except it had Chris Benoit in it.
Yeah.
It was a 3-way dance. It's Raven's rules, so it's no DQ. They make their way, pretty much as soon as the bell goes, they make their way up the aisle and start wrestling all over the scenery that's been placed to make it look farm themed.
Yeah.
Like sort of cowboy western sort of themed. There's a stagecoach spot. Raven's trying to climb up it. DDP throws him off it and then dives off it. They're getting thrown through gates and fences, which looks like they're fairly legit wood. They look like they're breaking. My favourite line on this show, they've got the wee table,
Yes.
and he's going to suplex him. Where? On the website.
Yep. Brilliant.
It's so of its time.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you listen to Tony Schiavone now, I mean, I would fully believe he might say the same thing again. It really made me laugh. It's obviously not planned. He's not trying to be funny. Yeah, that got me enough to write it down and make note of it.
Because they had the wee table where they would do like their web chats.
Yeah. It's like a Q&A thing, I think they do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was quite funny. I love this pay-per-view, says Bobby Heenan. Fuck me.
He's very, I should say, Tony Schiavone is, it sounds from his podcast like he's actually pretty tech savvy. Like he apparently does all the mixing and stuff like that for their podcast himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think he originally wanted, when he was being linked with going back to WWE, he never wanted to be an announcer there, but he wanted to be putting tapes together and stuff like that for the network.
Cool.
So I assume he knows what he's doing, but it was just brilliant comedy.
That's good. It's at this point that they've wrestled through all the sort of props and all that. They've wrestled through the crowd. They're back to the ring, and we start seeing things like the literal kitchen sink getting used. Schiavone is getting very excited about the potential use of a trash can at one point. And then he just sort of underplays it when he hits it. He's like, oh, he's got the trash can. He's getting very excited. And he's
he's hitting with a trash can.
Yeah.
I assume... See the Flock. I remember we've had a few stories with the Flock, and I didn't really know who... I knew who Saturn was. I knew who Kidman was.
Yep.
Are these guys... So we've got Hammer, who appears.
That's the guy that the moth's been eating his jumper.
Yeah. And we've got Reese, who's this massive guy.
Where did that guy come from?
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know where he went after, because I don't remember him being a thing. He's huge.
He looks legit like over 7 foot tall.
I take it these guys, they don't really have their own... I take it they're just in the Flock. They don't have their own backstory so much or things like that. Because I just didn't know who quite a few of them were. And Lodi, I think, has been... I think he and Kidman are probably the ones that always seem to have been there throughout all the ones we've reviewed, but I never knew much about the other guys.
Lodi seems to be the kind of sign guy that goes about holding the signs up, doesn't he? What did you say a guy was called Reese?
Reese.
He was.
Yeah.
I've never seen him before. I've written down here, Ravens called in some absolutely ginormous man.
Yeah. They reference him as Reese, and he does a big, it's like a chokeslam type move on Raven.
So the old Albert DDP. Bomb thing that he used to do, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's just strange that you'd think Vince McMahon would have loved that guy.
But basically, here, Raven has all of his guys have a wee shot at trying to help him put DDP away, but he keeps kicking out until a guy who's wearing like sort of TV crew type clothes comes in and smashes DDP with a stop sign, I think it is.
Yeah, and the stop sign I think had been used previously as well, but there was no real... The announcers didn't even seem to know who this guy was. Like they're selling that they genuinely thought he was one of the crew.
Yep.
So I don't... He's not given a name or anything like that. I assume new Flock member or one-off Flock member. I thought they kept DDP looking pretty strong.
Aye.
It takes a hell of a lot to take him out.
I assume this is a good way of getting the belt onto Goldberg without DDP having to take probably quite a significant loss.
Yeah, I think they want Goldberg to be a heel as well, because they want the crowd's reaction for the babyface winning the title off the heel. So I assume that's why it's happening here. I don't think, we've seen DDP on quite a run of matches with this title, defending it. I'm guessing, given where he ends up going to on the card, everyone's pretty happy with what he's doing, but they feel the need to get a belt on Goldberg.
So what did you think of the Raven Goldberg match the night after?
Let me just check my notes. It was fine. I'm thinking Raven got a bit of offense again. We've got, Goldberg's just kind of swatting off all the Flock members. He's they're doing their best to stack the deck and have him overcome all the odds, which I think in the story of what you want the guy to be, that's fine.
Perfect.
Yeah, I thought it was what it needed to be. It got Goldberg over. It made him look like I was going to say monster, but I mean that in a babyface term.
Totally.
Kind of unstoppable.
It looked box office to me, the way that it presented Goldberg, the way that the crowd were reacting to Goldberg winning that match was pretty amazing. To watch that live must have been amazing.
Yeah, and despite it not being last match on, they gave it the Michael Buffer intro. So I think they're doing their best to give it a big fight feel.
I'm genuinely really, I feel like they're doing a really good job with Goldberg. I think out of all of this mess, it would have been so easy, and I've said this before, to throw Goldberg in against somebody in the NWO.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I'm really surprised they didn't. I'm sure we'll get there. It'll be interesting to see where Goldberg does go. But I just thought they made it look like a really big deal.
It's an interesting one, because one of the big things they're criticised of is that they didn't, make stars. They didn't put the underneath guys on top. They didn't give them that kind of opportunity. I mean, they did with Goldberg. They absolutely did. But they've done a lot of it with Booker T, with DDP.
Yep.
Those guys have clearly upped a few levels as they've gone. But I suppose the difficulty is, what do you then do with them? Because they obviously, regardless of how well they're doing, other than Goldberg and, DDP gets a shot and Booker eventually gets there, they don't see them as on the level with the Hogans, the Nashes, the Stings. I suppose it's not that they haven't made the stars, it's just like they've maybe hit a glass ceiling.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess Bischoff being buddy with Hogan was going to mean that unless Hogan took a shine to them, similar to what he did with the Giant, then they're probably never going to get that shot. Somebody like Benoit's never going to look like he should be in the ring with Hogan, are they?
No, because I'm not sure when. I think Jericho jumped, and then
I was trying to
the
work that out,
Radicals after that. But I'm not sure how far it would be from here to Jericho actually making the jumps. Probably a wee while yet.
Jericho was like, I want to guess, about August 99 that he showed up, because obviously it was the Y2K problem and all that.
Yeah,
but it was well before 2000 that he was actually on WWF telly.
And I know the Giant jumped as well, but again, I assume he's still got a while in WCW here.
That was St. Valentine's Day Massacre, so that's like February 99.
Right.
That he came up through the ring in the cage.
I remember it well.
That's Paul White. Who? It's the Giant. So I get back to this. We've now got the belt on Goldberg, and I guess he just holds on to that belt. Does it? He must just hold on to the US title belt.
I'm pretty sure he still got it when he beats Hogan for the world title.
Really?
And then I think maybe relinquishes it, because he was undefeated when he beat Hogan for the title. So he definitely doesn't lose it unless he relinquishes it before. I have a feeling he's holding it when he wins the other one.
Right.
I can picture him lifting 2 belts.
So can I actually, when you say that now. Is that this year? Is that in 1998? No. 99 maybe.
Might be 99.
We've still got Ultimate Warrior to come this year. Fuck me.
Awesome. Can't wait.
So that brings us to Michael Buffer and the WCW Heavyweight Championship bout. Despite all that I've said about this show, I was looking forward to watching this. I like Sting, and I think we're both firmly on the Macho Man fan club.
Yep.
So yeah, I've written here in my notes that this pay-per-view can be salvaged if Savage wins the title. we've been reminded that this match is now non-disqualification about 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we know that there's run-ins coming probably. I thought that Sting, it's very rare that we actually see Sting coming down the aisle, and I thought he looked really cool with a big gold belt over his shoulder.
Yeah.
What did you think of the match?
I thought it was fine. I maybe was expecting a bit more. I think we all knew, like you mentioned, the no DQ, we're not going to get a clean finish. This isn't going to be a one-on-one match. And knowing that going in, I think I could cope with what comes to some extent later on. The announcers are spending a lot of time speculating about, what happens in the NWO if Savage wins the belt. We've got I think Savage kind of using Elizabeth to block a Sting attack and then her getting knocked down.
Yeah.
So there's
Classic
still
babyface behaviour.
Yeah, that's
He proper throws her into the corner. She gets a Stinger splash.
Yeah, and that's where it is quite confusing because here Savage is the babyface within the NWO, but the heel overall, or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit mixed up at this point. We've got Savage with I never like watching pile drivers. I don't know what it is, but you get a lot of them back in these days. Big pile driver on Sting. Sting is showing far more concern for Elizabeth after he's hit her. Savage then bringing a chair into the match. Savage puts the chair under Sting's head on the mat. He's going to go up for his flying elbow. And I've actually written in my notes, then that dastardly Hulk Hogan comes in and pushes Savage off the turnbuckle. Swine. That's what I've written. I'm clearly getting quite behind the idea of Savage winning the belt here.
You also sound like some sort of old-timey's person as well.
Yeah. It's obviously just the mood I was in when I wrote this. We've got Hogan looking pretty pleased with himself as he goes back up the ramp.
He does like the classic sweeping off his hands, like my job here is done.
And it's weird because you would think if you were being logical about it, would Hogan not maybe prefer Savage to win it? Because he's had his battles with Sting. It's not ended up going his way. In fact, it's kind of looked like he couldn't beat Sting fair. As we've gone through the course of multiple matches. But anyway, his hatred of Savage and everything that's gone on is clearly taken over. We've got Elizabeth being walked up the ramp by the trainers. The ref's down. Did the ref also did Savage pull him in the way of something as well?
So, yeah, I've got a big issue with this. It's a like I said, we've been told it's a non-disqualification match about 1 million times. Why do we need a ref bump?
Yeah. Yeah. The ref bump is usually traditionally so that the heel can do something that the ref won't see, and get an unfair advantage. But it's no DQ, so you don't need it. It's
just an excuse to beat up little Nash. There's no need for it.
Yeah. So we've got Sting with the Scorpion Death Drop on Savage. The ref's still down. And then we've got Nash coming down.
Here it comes.
I didn't actually know 100% what way this was going to go when he came down, because there was the part of me thinking this could all be, Hogan and Nash in this together.
And Heenan was dropping little breadcrumbs about that the whole way through the pay-per-view, actually, which was quite clever.
Yeah, whether it was intentional, who knows? Because you never really know with Heenan. But so Nash comes in and he hits the jackknife powerbomb on Sting, puts Savage over him for the cover. And we've got Savage winning the title, which I'm always happy with Savage winning the title.
Definitely.
We've then got some Hogan and
Nash.
The disciple. It's really weird. So Hogan's kind of saying stuff like, "That's my belt. Nash can't do that." And then I'll just read my notes. I've written Beefcake. Apologies for that. Beefcake, for some reason, repeats the word Nash, just looks really confused, points, and then says, "Kevin Nash." And then I've written, he comes across as a total idiot.
Totally reminded me of the oh god, that totally reminded me of the "They Took Our Jobs" episode of South Park.
I mean, if that's what he's got, he should never speak, or he should just stand, emotionless and not saying anything, not gesturing or anything, and just looking like the heavy. Because I don't know if he ever cut a promo in his WCW run. And I don't know if somebody said to him, you're supposed to be like this muscle-bound, emotionless, and he just didn't know how to play it, because I've memories when he was Beefcake. I'm not saying he was a brilliant promo or anything, but I think he could talk.
Aye, and he could play at the crowd and all that.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened here.
It's really weird. It doesn't, I think we spoke about this before, it genuinely doesn't look like him. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's really weird. I like that Nash refers to him as Hogan's freak wannabe biker buddy the next night as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to mention one thing about the Savage Sting match. With it being non-DQ, when Savage was going for the pin, he was using the second rope for leverage, because obviously the referee wouldn't pull him up for it. I liked that. It seemed logical. Yeah. But then there was a point when Savage was outside and Charles Robinson was counting him.
Yeah.
Does a non-disqualification... Can you still get counted out in a non-DQ match?
I don't know. I think in the old WWF days, they used to say, no disqualification, no count-outs. So maybe you can have a count-out. That would be kind of pointless if you couldn't be disqualified but could have a count-out. I don't know what the value would be.
What's the point in nitpicking? They clearly don't give a shit.
I was going to say, when we've just watched one of the all-time great pay-per-views.
Exactly.
You're just splitting hairs with this.
Exactly.
I don't know if you followed much of the follow-up Nitro in terms of the story between these guys.
Yeah.
The first thing that happens, I think this maybe happens quite early on the Nitro, is we see what happened after the pay-per-view ended, which was Hogan and Beefcake attacking Nash and Savage. Scott Norton getting all above his station.
Totally.
Coming out. It's like this middling guy who's decided, I've had enough of this.
That's called Karen Norton.
He's confronting Hogan and Beefcake about their behaviour. He's saying things like, the belt's back in the NWO where it belongs and that kind of thing. That the view being that should have been the objective. So, this kind of goes through the whole of Nitro, this angle between them. We've got Hogan coming out, and again, was this another Hogan coming out several times or appearing several times?
It was this.
Was it one?
He comes out to open it, and that's when I'd written, it's just taken him 8 minutes to essentially tell us that the NWO split up.
Yeah.
It's horrendous.
So he's talking about wanting a shot at the belt that is rightfully his. He's saying the NWO is split. When he takes his belt back, we'll see who follows him and who follows Savage and Nash. We've got Savage coming out, calling Hogan a coward, accepting the challenge, introducing Kevin Nash as the new leader of the NWO.
Yeah, that was. What did you think of that? I thought it was a bit weird.
Yeah, I didn't hate it.
No.
I think I sort of took it as you have to kind of be putting Savage in a babyface spot for this to work, but again, he kind of is in this scenario. He isn't in it for himself. He believes Nash is the right person to be the leader of the NWO. He doesn't feel just because he's got the belt that he should be the leader. So I kind of took it as that and him kind of putting Nash over.
You've convinced me.
Okay. I was maybe reading too much positivity into it just because I quite like Savage speaking.
I thought he was brilliant with this promo.
Yeah.
Brilliant, especially when you compare it to Hogan. Just electrifying.
Yeah. We've got Nash taking the mic. He's this is where he calls Beefcake, the disciple, a freak, saying that Savage will retain tonight. If that freak beside him sticks his nose in, he gets jackknifed. He calls Eric Bischoff a Ken doll.
I like that.
Yeah. We've got Hogan with the disciple coming out. Is this just... it's for the actual match. So Hogan coming out with the disciple, but Savage comes out on his own, which I found a little bit strange.
Yeah.
We've got Hogan telling the disciple to watch out for anyone from the NWO.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, surely there's not going to be any kind of swerve here, so it's all fine. Everything will just be as it seems.
When Hogan's saying that, when Hogan's saying that to him about watch out for people coming from NWO, he doesn't say anything back. He gives a thumbs up to like the air. It's like somebody's controlling him backstage.
He's maybe been told he's not allowed to speak from now on.
Kevin Nash.
We've got, I assume this is no DQ again, this match.
Yeah, so in between some of the matches, I think it's after the Goldberg-Raven match, Piper comes out. That bastard heel, Gene Okerlund, introduces the commissioner, Piper, and he comes out and he says he's going to set a bunch of rules for the match. But he doesn't. He says it's no DQ. And then he says the match will go on until 2:00 in the morning if it needs to, basically somebody needs to win. That's not a rule for the match. And the third rule for the match is that Piper will have his way with Hogan after the match is finished.
And what does that mean? Okay. Yeah.
Indeed.
I won't let my imagination run wild there. Not like Hulkamania is about to.
They give this match about, 25 minutes?
Yeah.
It's too long.
See, when I was like watching the show and I just looked at the time that was left, you assume with what this match is, there's a hell of a lot of stuff going to go on in the aftermath or towards the end of the match, but I didn't expect the actual, in-ring to go on anywhere near as long as it did. We've got, like, in terms of the actual match, Hogan starting aggressive, dominant, using the disciple to make sure he keeps the advantage. We've got Hogan going for a leg drop, Savage moving, getting a bit of initiative. He goes for the big elbow, but he's hurt his knee, can't make the cover. Bobby Heenan getting a little bit frustrated by that. He's just saying, just get over and just any part of your body on edge, just make a cover. And then we've got Savage getting a bit of a second wind, kind of after Hogan has applied the figure 4 leg lock to try and, exacerbate the knee injury. Savage kind of throws the ref at one stage, and then the disciple takes out the ref. And again, very similar to what you mentioned last night, it's no DQ, so probably not needed here. Not sure which ref it was. It wasn't Baby Nature again, was it?
Not sure.
We've got Savage's knee getting wrapped around the ring post several times. He's been shelling the knee for quite a chunk of the match. The disciple hits something called the Apocalypse on Savage.
That was essentially a stunner, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's hit the title belt, has used the title belt as he's done it. we've then got, it's bizarre that it would take quite this long, but Kevin Nash has seen enough, and he comes out. Could have come out quite a bit earlier and stopped the double teaming that was on the go, but who am I to judge his decision making? We've got Bischoff sneaking in behind Nash.
Where's he come from?
He just, I don't know if he kind of crept down behind him, because I didn't see him until he was like there.
Aye, same.
So I'm not sure. He could have been, hiding ringside the whole time. Not sure. Yeah, we've got, he's basically holding Nash's leg so he can't move, and then Hogan, the disciple, take him out. We've got Hogan trying to hit Nash with the belt. Nash ducking. Hogan takes out the disciple. Nash gets Hogan in position for a jackknife powerbomb. Eric Bischoff, he's like acted like a wee boy, kind of trying to, he's like jumping on his back and stuff like that, and scrambling all over him to try and stop this jackknife from getting hit. He's kicking him, all that kind of thing. Nash takes out Bischoff, hits Hogan with the jackknife, places Savage on top of Hogan. I'm sitting there happy, thinking this is all good. My guy Savage is going to retain. We'll never see Hogan again. This is all great. And then Bret Hart. Why on earth is Bret Hart interfering in this? Why is Bret gone heel?
Well, the previous week on Nitro, peppered throughout the show were these weird vignettes, and I only know this because I clicked on the wrong Nitro. And he was talking about, I'm never going to let anybody screw me again. I won't stand back and let anybody else be screwed. And I don't know how that plays into why he's here, but I think that relates to it. So he comes out and nails Nash with the belt, doesn't he?
Yeah. Nails Nash with the belt, pulls Hogan across Savage and revives the ref. The ref, the groggy poor ref, just has enough to make the 3 count. And that's Hogan with his belt back. Hogan, new champion. We have a furious Roddy Piper coming down to the ring to confront Bret Hart. He's shouting at him, how could you do that? Bret Hart's just kind of ignoring him. He's shouting, talk to me. And eventually Bret Hart just punches Piper, knocks him down, and then has a really smug grin on his face as he leaves the arena to close that show. I'm very disappointed in Bret Hart here. So this is like a roller coaster of emotions. The pay-per-view was terrible, generally. The episode Nitro was brilliant. And I've got up to a certain point where I'm loving it, and then I've just, when Bret Hart helps Hulk Hogan, I've wrote, fuck off WCW, just fuck off. I mean, everyone knew, like, there was quite a bit of resentment. And I'm sure even before, days when I would have been looking up stuff online and all that, I think it was kind of a known thing that Bret Hart did not have a lot of time for Hulk Hogan.
Hates Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. It didn't make sense.
Hogan held him down in WWF. You're talking WrestleMania 9 forward.
It was supposed to, I believe they were supposed to have a match. Hogan wanted to win the belt at Mania 9. They were then supposed to have a match.
Where the Survivor Series or something like that, I think. Yeah,
and then basically Hogan, despite what he'd said initially, refused to put him over. Said, I don't lose to a guy like him, or something like that, that kind of thing. And it's pretty safe to say that in real life, outside of Nitro, I don't think Bret Hart's forgotten about that. I mean, he tends not to let things go very quickly and very easily.
No. They had like publicity shots done for the WWF magazine. I'm sure there's publicity shots of them facing off against each other and all that, and then obviously Hogan next it. Fuck's sake, what are they doing?
Yeah, I was kind of angry at the story because it just doesn't make sense. There's no logic to it, and I like logic wherever possible. Yeah, I know what you mean. The Nitro generally was pretty good. You know that you've got this split in this all-powerful organization. You know that certainly 3 of the big hitters in terms of the structure of that company or the NWO are split between them. I'm curious about who's going to align with who and things like that. I didn't need this Bret Hart stuff.
Nah, it's just kind of thrown. I suppose they needed people to team up on Hogan's side if they're doing. Say you've got the Outsiders and Savage. Suppose you need people on Hogan's side. It's this sort of curse of them having so many top guys. Yeah, I'm just looking at the lineup for their next pay-per-view, Slamboree, which thankfully we won't get to for another 3 episodes. There's no Hogan on it. There's no title being defended on it.
All right. Okay.
Bret Hart v Randy Savage, which is a match I've never seen, which I'd like to see. They go 16 minutes. The main event's Sting and the Giant versus Outsiders.
Strange that there's no Hogan on a pay-per-view. Yeah, because if you look beyond that, he's on the next one. But yeah,
weird,
strange.
So there we go. That is all she wrote on WCW Spring Stampede, and thank goodness that was a slog, wasn't it?
They're a wee bit harder going, these WCW shows.
We're still fairly early in 1998 as well.
I know, and I have, in terms of what we are going through next, I have no idea what it is. So, yeah. Do you know? Are you able to break the news?
What do you mean? As far as what our next show is?
Yeah.
I do know. Yes, I do. Our next show is ECW WrestlePalooza.
Okay, I can get behind that. I'm fine with that.
Followed by WWF Over the Edge.
So we're a few weeks away from being back in WCW. That's good. I need a wee break. I said to you when we were doing prep for this, I basically watched all the shows in one day, and that was maybe a mistake.
Yeah,
I think I scunnered myself that day.
I watched. What did I watch? I watched the first 2 matches, and then that was when I texted you. Yeah, I've definitely broke it up. Maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah,
because it sounds like I really enjoyed it right enough.
I'll know the next. I'll give that a try. Just see if it makes a difference.
Give that a wee shot. The ECW one should hopefully be a palate cleanser for you. Do you want me to tell you what's on it?
Go for it.
Okay, here we go. ECW WrestlePalooza. The FBI versus the Blue Meanie and Supernova.
Okay.
Just Incredible versus Mikey Whipwreck.
Awesome.
Just Incredible, of course, just recently been on our TV screens, talking about the plane ride from hell.
Yeah.
Less said about that, the better. Balls and Axel versus Candido and Storm for the tag titles. I'm guessing Candido and Storm are not on the same page after the last time we saw them. Bam Bam Bigelow versus New Jack.
Okay.
This is interesting. Dudley Boys versus Dreamer and Sandman. Oh, Sabu versus RVD.
Awesome.
And Shane Douglas v Al Snow.
Yeah, I think I can look forward to this with some enthusiasm.
Nice.
Yeah, I like the ECW shows because the everything, although it's years ago, it's a frightening number of years ago, because I wasn't watching the TV at the time. I've seen quite a few of the shows, but not all of them. I'm a lot of the time seeing matches for the first time.
Yep.
And it just, although, what are we, 20 oh God, 23 years. It feels really fresh to me because a lot of it's new to me. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice change of pace from WCW.
Yeah, the ECW just kind of feels like fun versus WCW's all slow and
yeah,
difficult.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh well, we'll see you for episode 22 for ECW WrestlePalooza.
Awesome.
Until then, follow us on our Instagram, Outlaws Pod, and until next time, take it easy. Adam, away and sit in a dark room for a while and get rid of all that horrible WCW-ness.
Good idea, yeah.
See you for episode 22.
Cheers.
Cheers.